If you were trapped on an island with very strange, large, and very dangerous wildlife, would you know how to survive? In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to beat the creatures from Kong Skull Island. Like all videos in this series, we're going to be trying to give the characters some advice to hopefully help them survive a little longer in the movie or survive all the way till the very end. Now let's get started with the movie and see what we have to work with. Our movie starts off during the World War II time period, where we see an American pilot and a Japanese pilot both crash onto a strange unknown island. The two immediately start fighting, with the Japanese soldier almost killing the American soldier. But then the presence of a giant gorilla many of you known as King Kong shows up and stops the fight. Normally I'd give some combat advice on how the American soldier could have potentially won the fight. However, I don't think it's actually good if the American soldier wins the fight in this situation. And if you haven't already watched the movie, you'll know why soon enough. Our movie then cuts to the near future and we start following a scientist named Will Randa. And he's been working to assemble a crew full of soldiers and experts to explore an uncharted island. The entire crew is then briefed about the island that was avoided by people for centuries and how it's surrounded by
perpetual storm system.
They also plan to bomb the entire island so they can get a seismic reading and essentially map the entire island out. Here the ship runs into some terrible weather, meaning they probably can't get any closer to the island. Both the captain and the project manager say we shouldn't go. However, both Dr. Randa and the colonel both say they want to go to the island or else they'll miss the window. And the planes fly in, basically embarking them on an impossible mission to explore the Skull Island. And that brings me to my first series of solutions, is don't go to the fucking island in the first place. In this movie, there's plenty of different reasons and signs that you should not be going to this island from the perspective of almost every character. While the first and most obvious reason is the soldiers are all returning from the Vietnam War and many of their families are waiting for them in the US to return home. And I highly doubt your family would be extremely happy if you went from the jungles of Saigon to the jungles of an unexplored island that's been avoided for centuries. If you find yourself in this situation, there's multiple ways you could avoid going to the army, and the most common one I found is getting an injury so bad that you can no longer embark on the mission. For example, during World War II, many soldiers were able to skip their battles by walking out into the woods, saying they had to take a fucking piss and then shooting themselves in the leg, saying it was an enemy bullet, and because they were injured, they would not have to rush enemy trenches. Another reason they definitely should have aborted the mission was because of the strange weather phenomenon surrounding the island. The captain literally said his ship could not get any closer, and the crew are flying in helicopters, which are the vehicles most heavily affected by strong winds. So realistically, without the movie logic, I think all their planes would have just blown away in the giant storm. Now finally, I'm gonna use a tactic almost never seen in movies, which is common sense. You have a government official giving you a top secret mission and bribing you with cash to go with him. When you get onto the ship, you see a giant storm around an island that for some strange reason has been avoided for the past centuries. And then you see them coming in with bombs and military equipment. If it was truly just an exploration mission, they would not need this. The Portuguese literally explored America with like muskets and smallpox, but you know. And if you think about it, it's almost as if someone's keeping a secret that there's something very dangerous and very scary about the island that most people don't know about. Unfortunately, in the movie, the characters all end up making it to the island, meaning that a majority of them end up dying. And here we come to our second solution, which is a majority of this video as well. It's how you could survive if you do get placed on the island. Once the helicopters make it out of the storm and fly to the island's landmass, they drop off the scientists onto the ground, while the rest of the planes start bombing the area to get a seismic reading. However, as they're dropping bombs all over the island, they meet a very pissed off Kong. So all the helicopters instinctively start firing at him. It turns out, however, that Kong is almost impervious to these bullets, so he starts taking the helicopters out one at a time, usually by grabbing them out of the air and throwing them, or sometimes even throwing helicopters into other helicopters. This situation could be avoided if the helicopters have just flown in different directions away from Kong and then landed when he wasn't near them. Because it's a jungle environment, the thick canopy will protect Kong from seeing you once you run into the jungle. After all the helicopters go down, the characters are split into two halves, one half with more military people and the other half with the explorers, photographers, and scientists. We start following one of the groups, whose plan is make it to the rendezvous point on foot and then fire a signal flare so hopefully someone will pick them up. While the colonel, who's the leader of the other group, decides to interrogate the scientist that brought him here. Honestly, if I were in this situation, I would interrogate him too, because you really have nothing to lose. He'll either provide you with no information, which doesn't change your circumstance, or he'll provide you with information, which could help you survive. Meanwhile, back in the first crew, they're already walking across the island and they come upon some native wildlife. They make the good decision of not shooting at it, because you can see how well shooting at the native wildlife did for you in the first place. After walking for a while, they realize that they have come upon some ruins. That shows that there was once humans on this island. Well, or maybe that there is humans. If you're able to infer from the movie earlier and the time period jumps, you'd be able to realize that's the American pilot from earlier in the movie. The World War II vet then directs everyone to the villagers' tribes, where they're allowed to rest for a little bit. And here the World War II vet exposes everything about the island. They show this wall, and that wall isn't made for Kong. It's made for something much scarier. The vet also brings up an important point. He says people in this tribe live for a very long time. There's no personal property and stress levels are very low. So that brings me to my third possible solution. You could abandon your life entirely and join and live in the tribe like the World War II vet did. This lifestyle isn't for everyone, but it could be considered a good thing to some people because you can't really find an experience like this in the modern world. Now let's quickly go check on the military people from the other side of the island. Rather than walk into some healthy natives and a helpful World War II vet, they walk into a large bamboo forest. Just a fun fact, bamboo is actually the tallest species of grass in the world, and inside each bamboo there's usually a source of water that's plenty safe to drink. And since this island is mysterious, you don't know if the water has any unknown pathogens or microscopic creatures that might like eat your lungs or some shit. So the bamboo water is probably safer than just drinking from a river. To continue with the movie, one of the soldiers thinks it's a safe time to take a break because it's a bamboo forest after all. However, it turns out that this isn't just a bamboo forest. There's a giant bamboo bug that shoots bamboo legs through people. You see, this soldier probably could have lived if he was just paying attention, so he should have let the other people in front of him know that he was taking a drink so maybe they could watch for him. It turns out that this bug can also shoot these sticky things that drag you up into the sky. The soldier is able to escape by cutting away the sticky tentacles that are trapping him. However, I think a better solution is use the knife to cut your clothes off and that would free you. My reasoning is you don't know if this creature's blood is acidic like a xenomorph or something, so it's better to not mess with it. You might be butt naked, but at least you'll be alive. They're only able to defeat the creature after they realize the creature's legs are basically bamboo, so they just cut its legs off and it dies, and they get out of the forest. After getting out of the forest, one of the soldiers is simply standing in the river alone tending to his wounds. It really pisses me off to see him put the dirty water into his water bottle and then pour it into his hand and put it on his wound. Why doesn't he just stick his hand into the water and put the hand on the wound? Now he probably has some mysterious Ebola level disease in his bottle that he's gonna drink from later. Just then we see King Kong show up and start tending to his wounds in the exact same lake. However, he gets attacked by a squid. But this is just calamari dinner for King Kong, and he just eats the fucking squid. Back at the native Skull Islander camp, the first group realize they can't make it to the rendezvous on time on foot. So they trust the World War II vet and help him fix up his old plane turned boat, and they call it a ploat. And the photographer lady, instead of helping repair the ploat, she decides to venture outside of the walls, which is a terrible fucking idea. And she sees one of those big deer elk thingies trapped under a helicopter. What does she try to do? She tries to lift the entire helicopter off of it. Now, this is such a stupid move for so many reasons. Just imagine if one of those skull devil things from earlier showed up and fucking killed her. Luckily for the girl, King Kong eventually comes and frees the elk from the helicopter. And that soldier from earlier is still alone for some unknown fucking reason. He's sitting on this weird log bug hybrid thingy. And he immediately opens fires. And if we haven't learned from the movie, shooting at stuff either pisses us off or attracts something much more deadly. And in this case, it was the latter half. He attracted one of the skull devils, which immediately kills him. Fortunately for all the living people on the island, they're actually able to get the ploat to work, and after a signal flare is fired, the two groups meet together. But not before the scientist guy gets a little too eager and excited and gets killed by some pterodactyl bird hybrids. The colonel of the group has apparently gone fucking crazy, and he decides he wants to go kill Kong instead of immediately getting off the island. And this is despite the veteran telling them that's where all the skull crawlers are. If I find myself in this situation, I would just tell the colonel that it's too dangerous to bring the civilians, so I would stay back with the civilians, and once the colonel leaves with all his men, I would drive the plane off and leave. However, in the movie, this isn't what they do, and they all go as a group together to Skullcrawler territory. I know sometimes you should stick together, but you obviously shouldn't stick together in shit situations. Once all the people are deep in Skullcrawler territory, the scientist that brought them all here immediately gets eaten. A giant fight ensues, and if you want to watch that fight, go check out the movie. You can find it on plenty of websites online. I mean, I don't know if I was allowed to say that. FBI, open up! The only one part of the fight scene I found extremely strange is once the poisonous gas accidentally explodes from the guy with the grenades, one of the people runs in with a gas mask and a sword. However, he's trying to save someone who is just sitting in the poisonous gas without a mask. And right before he saves him, for some reason, he also takes off the mask in the middle of the poisonous gas. The Colonel has clearly at this point become a pyromaniac and almost goes insane, because the first 2 times he tries to kill Kong, each time he loses a fuck ton of men. The third time he decides to blow up the entire forest. Honestly, if I were one of the men in this situation, I'd speak up against his actions, and if he didn't listen, I would execute him on the spot, because he's basically gonna get all of you killed. Luckily, right before he's able to detonate charges on the Kong just fucking crushes him, and this scene's actually really satisfying. Now we finally reach the real final fight of the movie between Kong and the giant Skull Devil, so what can we do to help out Kong? But first, can we please appreciate the funniest and worst sacrifice in perhaps movie history? When the fight first starts, Kong uses a giant projectile to smash the creature in the head, which I think is very effective use of your natural resources. Just a few seconds later in this fight, there's a scene where Kong is trying to use his hands to pull the alligator creature looking thing's mouth open. However, this isn't a smart move because most creatures have a stronger bite strength than you do a grip strength, especially as a gorilla. Because I believe that creature is similar to a crocodile, and believe it or not, crocodile have the strongest bite strength on the planet. And now imagine that like 100 times bigger. He later uses a tree to swing at the creature like a baseball bat. However, I think this is really ineffective because the creature has a lot of outer armor. Instead, I would try to sharpen the tree on a nearby rock and then stab it into the creature's throat, which seems to be his weak point. The creature eventually pushes Kong back into the nearby boat. However, Kong is able to escape and use the propeller as a hook to stab the creature and pull him closer. He then beats the shit out of the creature using that weird propeller thing. After the creature is down, he goes to save the girl. However, the creature was never dead. But this is why I think you should always double tap your target. It doesn't hurt to punch it a few more times. And at the end, he ends up killing the creature while saving the girl at the same time, and the rest of the people are free to leave through the boat, and they get to the rendezvous point, and everyone makes it back to the US that survived up to this point, which is a decent ending. Overall, I rate this movie on the beatability scale of a 7 out of 10. I think it's very beatable, especially because you have a lot of people that can take shots for you, and you have a giant fucking monkey protecting you. And that's how you beat the Skull Island. I just checked my subscribers, and more than 80% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed. How about not being so stingy and hitting the subscribe button? It's literally costs you nothing. Thank you all so much for the explosion of support on my channel. As usual, like the video and comment what movie you want next. And if you're subscribed, you can always check the polls and see what movie I might be doing next and vote for which one's your favorite. And as usual, have a good rest of your day. I'm on the move, can't stop me if you try.